Psalm 76 is a psalm of Asaph, celebrating God's power and His triumph over the enemies of His people. The psalm begins with a declaration of God's renown in Judah and His great name in Israel. The psalmist highlights Zion, Jerusalem, as the place where God dwells, where His presence is felt most powerfully, and from where He has manifested His power. The city becomes a symbol of God's protection and the center of His divine intervention. The psalmist then recounts a dramatic display of God's power against the enemies of His people. He describes how God has shattered the weapons of war, rendering the enemies powerless. Arrows, shields, swords, and other instruments of battle are broken, illustrating God's supremacy over all military might. The imagery emphasizes that no force can stand against God's power when He chooses to act in defense of His people. In the midst of this narrative, the psalmist reflects on the awe-inspiring nature of God. He portrays God as fearsome and majestic, whose anger can cause the earth to tremble and the mountains to stand still. The psalmist emphasizes that even the most powerful human beings are rendered speechless and powerless before God's judgment. This awe is coupled with the acknowledgement that God's judgment is righteous and that He saves the humble of the earth. The psalm concludes with a call to worship and reverence. The psalmist urges people to make vows to the Lord and fulfill them, bringing gifts to the one who is to be feared. This act of worship is a response to God's demonstrated power in His righteous judgment. The psalmist ends by reaffirming that God breaks the spirit of rulers and is feared by the kings of the earth. Psalm 76, therefore, serves as a powerful reminder of God's protective power, His righteous judgment, and the appropriate response of reverence and worship from His people. Let's now read Psalms chapter 76. To the chief musician on Negioth, a psalm or song of Asaph, in Judah is God known, His name is great in Israel. In Salem also is His tabernacle, and His dwelling place in Zion. There brake He the arrows of the bow, the shield, and the sword, and the battle. Selah. Thou art more glorious and excellent than the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted are spoiled, they have slept their sleep, and none of the men of might have found their hands. At Thy rebuke, O God of Jacob, both the chariot and horse are cast into a dead sleep. Thou, even Thou, art to be feared, and who may stand in Thy sight when once Thou art angry? Thou didst cause judgment to be heard from heaven, the earth feared, and was still. When God arose to judgment, to save all the meek of the earth. Selah. Surely the wrath of man shall praise Thee, the remainder of wrath shalt Thou restrain. Vow, and pay unto the Lord your God, let all that be round about Him bring presents unto Him that ought to be feared. He shall cut off the spirit of princes, He is terrible to the kings of the earth. This ends our reading of Psalms chapter 76.